Guys, a lot of you guys had questions on number 8. Number 8 is a little bit different because it's a leading coefficient. So we're going to divide everything to start by -2. That gives me x squared minus 5x minus 11 equals -2. Now we need to make sure that we add the 2 to the -11 because we want it to equal 0. So we have x squared minus 5x minus 9 equals 0. Does everyone see how I did that? Again, if you have questions, I'm usually at my computer for the morning. Okay, now, from here, this is where it's going to be kind of confusing. We're going to take the -9 and we're going to add it back to the 0 because we want that blank space in the C section to give us our perfect square. So we have x squared minus 5x equals +9. So now we have a blank space. To get that blank space, it's actually really easy. We're just going to take 5, divide it by 2. We're going to take our middle term, and then we're going to square it. So that actually ends up being 2.5 squared, which, I'm sorry, -2.5 squared, which is actually a positive 6.25. Whoops, I'm not going to write that in there yet. Now, we need to write that positive 6.25 in our blank space. And we also need to add it to our 9, which is 15.25. Now we have a perfect square. It's a decimal, it's nasty, but it's a perfect square. So we have x, so we can factor that. We have two perfect squares, perfect square, perfect square. Middle term is telling us what to do. 6.25, if you take the square root of that, is actually 2.5. And we know that because if you go back to when we found 6.25, we just did 2.5 times 2.5 equals 15.25. Can't forget the square. Now, we have to get rid of the square. And to get rid of the square, to get rid of that, we take the square root of everything. So it means it takes the square root of this and the square root of this. And all it's going to do to this is make it this. The square root of 15.25, that is going to be a nasty decimal. If you do it on your calculator, it's like 3.9 something. Round it to the nearest tenth. But you have to remember that 3.9 is also a plus or a minus. Okay? That's going to give us our two solutions. Okay? Now it's a matter of just solving for x twice. So x minus 2.5 equals 3.9. X minus 2.5 equals -3.9. If we add 2.5 to both sides, we end up with a solution of, and I'll write it on the side so you guys can see, -1.4 and 6.4. Now, all that means is that the parabola, if I were to graph this, would cross through there. Now, here's a secret tip, too. If this is confusing to you, you guys have access to graphing calculators. Those graphing calculators will show you where it crosses the x. Maybe, obviously, you're going to need to show some work, but that's going to give you an idea of where it crosses. Okay? Hopefully this helped. Your homework today is posted. It's only 6 problems, and if you're lost, stop. Take care.